Over the last year, Book of Hours has been there for you during the most challenging times of our lives. As an artist collaboration, we've given shape and depth to some of the most complicated topics of our time, making them easily accessible for those who seek to understand. We've given voice and space to the stories that often go ignored. Please take a moment to consider being a patron, make a donation, or join Rokfin. Thank you.
Lonely spire crawling on the floor. Lonely spider longing for love once more.
And we're back.
Hey,
I hope you can all see us this time.
this is our Halloween episode, and
Yeah.
I hope you guys can see us. Let us know if you can't. Let us know if there are any technical difficulties in the chat, if you please. I'm checking things on our end, and everything seems to be fine.
Yeah.
And obviously, this is our Halloween episode, in case you hadn't figured that out already. These are pumpkins actually behind us. Hi, Live Alive.
All right, we're here. And you can see us. That's awesome. Great.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Yeah. And letting us know about last time.
Right.
So we had a false start, but that's okay. We can get going again. So yes, our little pumpkin lights.
Our pumpkin lights, and we might play some scary Halloween music.
Yeah.
And hopefully we won't get any copyright.
Well, we would if we. Well, anyway. Hey, Julie, did you see the promo for this show?
Yeah.
Did you see it? But I don't know if everyone did. I don't know if I did.
This is Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum. Join me and Book of Hours this Saturday, October 23rd at 4 p.m. for a special edition of Bookmark, where we'll talk shit and have a video release party for Globotics, Book of Hours' long-awaited video about the future of work. Let me just say, you'll own nothing and be happy. You are so screwed. Remember, October 23rd, Book of Hours, 4 p.m. Say, has anyone seen Greta?
Sylvia.
Here I am, Klausy. How dare you?
I guess. Let's hope
Anyway,
this time it actually
so
works.
tired of Greta, to be honest.
I am too.
I'm so tired of her.
Yeah. So let me show the chat. So hopefully looking good.
Thanks.
Yes, everybody is so screwed. We just took over the broadcast. So it is Halloween and coming up, and so it's a good time for reflection. It's the Celtic New Year. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah. That's something that we should all know.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, you wouldn't be a good Wiccan if you didn't know that.
Oh, well, luckily I'm not a Wiccan.
Yeah, so it's a good thing. So weird things going on. Do you want to kick it off, or are you still?
Yeah, it's like it's kind of hard to talk about serious things when I've got pumpkins on my head, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna give it the old college try.
And let us know if you guys can hear us. We did it. We did an audio test, but I think we're good.
Yeah. So we just today we had yet another shooting in our neighborhood, and and when we say that we have shootings in our neighborhood, we're not talking like, miles and miles and miles away from us. We're talking like, across the street or around the corner outside our front door. I have literally had to hit the floor to avoid being shot. It was at JP's recommendation when he's watching the shooter,
like going,
he's like over our porch, looking at the shooter. It's all theatrics. That's why we're making such light of it, because we're not afraid. We don't fear for our safety or anything. Oh, hey, Rebel Egg. That's our friend Kimberly.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
So I'm talking about the shooting that took place today. So it was about 15 rounds.
Yeah.
And it was about a block from our house. And and I was explaining, that we're not afraid of the shootings because we know that it's
It's theater.
theater.
Yeah. Mhm.
I can't use the double F term, flag, because we might get taken down off of YouTube and Facebook and wherever else we're streaming.
Mhm.
But the point is that we don't feel threatened by the shooting because we know, and we've seen evidence of it, and how it's affected our lives.
Mhm.
We know that it's for what's called sustainable development goals,
Mhm.
which is something that Rosa Quare talks about and something that our good friend in Tulsa talks about, Julianne Romanello. If you're not following her, please do. So she talks, extensively about various, goals and models of corporate interests who want to take over small communities, or they basically want to herd communities outside of their areas and push them into more concentrated, surveilled, more urban environments. And so we live 15 minutes outside of downtown Pittsburgh, and lots of shootings in our neighborhood, which is
And
pretty.
yet it's still not close enough, Julie.
And it, I know, right? It's still not close enough because we're not undergoing any kind of sustainable development in our neighborhood at all. They can barely, keep the roads fixed here, or, keep the houses from being blighted. You know what I'm saying? So, which makes me wonder where our tax money is going. But
Right.
anyway, so there's probably going to the theatrics of
Yeah,
the
exactly.
shootings.
Well, if not fireworks, right?
Or fireworks.
So the things that Rosa Quare was talking about were the things like, in regard to sustainable development goals, she's like, look, you might be living in a rural community and it's not like they're going to take away your home from you. They're not going to take away your car. They're either going to go out and destroy the road. Probably not, because that costs money. But what they will do is what we talk about a lot is benign neglect, and not repave that road, and not take care of it. Your mail may stop going away. We've talked about this before too, with the idea, the proposals to privatize the postal service. They will make it so that it's hard to live where you're living. Our friend in North Carolina, Lynn Taylor, was talking about how her street outside of her house, they're planning on expanding it, and how she was talking about how basically she's going to lose her home because they're trying to expand the street so that they can put in more bus lanes and bike lanes, and basically the sustainable development goals. She's like, the traffic isn't that bad out there into the closest third tier city or fourth tier city nearby, and but yet they're still doing this kind of thing, and they're going to make it so that she can't live where she lives. So, excuse me. Sorry. Anyway, so these are not going to be, they're going to be things that are done to us through benign neglect, or through these theatrics, like these shootings, or the firework campaigns that have been going on for a while there. And what they want to do is concentrate, as Julie said, populations into smaller and smaller communities. Now, what may happen here in this particular part of the greater Pittsburgh area or whatever, is that they might force a lot of people out, start building high-rise buildings that they want to move people into, and create another sort of sustainable development area. This is speculation, but it's possible.
So can I read what I wrote earlier, because it has directly to do.
Yeah.
It has to do with the shooting directly.
Okay.
And it's much more comprehensive. So there's shootings all the time. Today, a round of about 10 to 15 shots were fired off about a block from us. When I heard it, it sounded like machine gun fire spray. These theatrical performances are really pissing me off. First, they're putting my neighbors on edge, poor things. Second, they're the excuse used for buses and taxis to no longer come to this neighborhood. And once again, JP and I were left stranded last night again because suddenly, without warning, Port Authority decided to simply not run the bus to our neighborhood last night with no warning and no explanation. And there were no taxis either. So we were stranded and we had to succumb to uploading the Lyft app. The shootings are part of the Sustainable Development Goals that Rosa Quare talked about. The goal is to get people to flee to the more concentrated, surveilled neighborhoods within cities and counties. And the goal is to get the small family-run businesses that have managed to keep hanging on despite extraordinary odds stacked against them, to get them to close down and pack up and abandon their neighborhood. The lack of care to the neighborhood, like bad sidewalks and blight and bad roads and a couple of strip clubs and a host of other unsavory and challenging issues that remain unaddressed, just isn't enough to get these people to leave. So now, random, over-the-top theatrics, like the fireworks in 2020, and now the shootings in 2021, which are continuous and have been pretty often, last week, this week, the week before, so we'll hopefully do the trick to get rid of these people is what the goal is with these shootings. So these ongoing trauma making events are just downright silly. The cops are totally incapable of handling it because it's not real violence. It's theater used as an excuse to shut down my access to my only form of transportation or freedom, which is the bus or taxis. And so my husband and I are pretty much the minority around here. We don't own a car, and we are dependent on the bus or taxis for everything. And last night, once again, without warning, we were yet again fucked over and completely stranded. So I suppose this is something that we really need to be talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and happy Samoon, Sean. Thank you.
Yeah. So sustainable development goals aren't just, this sort of amorphous, unseen thing that you read about or that, you hear various podcasters who you love talk about. It's not, they're actually affecting real people. It actually affects our lives in real ways.
Right.
We were literally stranded. We had no way to get where we needed to go because of sustainable development goals, because the bus just out of nowhere decided to not
show up.
Now,
the weird thing is okay, so mass transportation is part of the sustainable development goals, but in this case we feel like they're trying to focus and concentrate people or get people out of the areas where they don't want them to be by removing those services that get them to the places they need to be. I feel like downtown...
Rebel A says you can't get to work. Exactly.
I
actually tweeted Port Authority today and I said, why are you no longer picking buses up at the scheduled time? Why have you ignored, so many of your routes in the West Park, Stowe Township, West Pittsburgh area, McKees Rocks where we live. People have not been able to get to their jobs or to their necessary appointments.
Right.
Tons of people have been stranded.
So we've been talking about
continuously.
Right, exactly. And we've been talking about the 15-minute neighborhoods or 15-minute cities as and this is all part of it as well, where you live in a community, and it sounds great, right? It sounds like something that I would love to live in, because I would love to be able to just like live in a neighborhood where I can it's
24.
The number 24.
24 West Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you can walk to the store, you can, ride your bike somewhere, whatever, and take care of all the things that you take care of.
We're urbanized. We're from San Francisco. This is what you do.
We used to live in that kind of setup, but it was organic. It was already there. The infrastructure was already there. There were like the local stores, and the bus was there, and you could ride your bike over to in each neighborhood. Right now, they're like kind of creating these kind of things. And an example of that will be like the waterfront in Cleveland, which they're planning to do.
Mhm.
And they're touting it as like their goal is to become a 15-minute neighborhood. Okay, great. But the problem is that, you know, what we're talking about dovetails with what's going on. These sustainable development goals will create these more concentrated areas that are not organic, that are forcing people to be in specific areas. And the reason for a lot of these is so that people can work from home.
Mhm.
Or if they don't work from home, they can do these types of jobs. So we were talking about. I want to get into the idea of Lyft and Uber.
Oh, right.
So
Yeah.
we were basically forced to use a Lyft last night.
Which we really don't want to.
Right. And
Luckily, the Lyft driver was pretty cool. I'd like to talk about some of the conspiracy theories about, you know, Lyft and Uber when you're done.
Okay,
Just
all
really
right, yeah.
quickly.
So, you know, these like the taxis have been basically it's like as if they've been forced out of business. And I
Yeah.
think that, you know, the conversion from Yellow Cab to Z Trip, and I don't know if this has happened throughout the country, but I believe that it was a brand change, rebranding of the company
Of Yellow Cab. Yeah.
Cab, because it's Y to Z, right? And Z Trip has just been like decimated. There's hardly any drivers in Pittsburgh. The other cab company that was here in Pittsburgh is gone.
Gone.
Completely.
Completely gone.
It was Cranberry Cab. It's gone.
Yeah.
And so we don't have the alternative of using a cab when the bus doesn't show up. So now you're forced into using something like Lyft or Uber, which are basically
Tracking devices.
well, not only
Tracking
that, but they're part of the digital service provider platforms, right?
Mhm.
That we'll talk about later when we talk about Globotics, when we show Globotics. So it's forcing people into these digital service platforms, whether they're working from home or doing a job like an Uber or a Lyft, and it's also forcing people to live closer and closer together, so that there's more surveillance.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you know, you hear a lot of stories. Do you need to get some water?
I need to step away for a second. I'll be right back.
So you hear a lot of stories about how people get into Lyft cars or Ubers, and then, you know, they can't wear a mask, and then the driver then rates the passenger. So this is where your social credit stuff comes into play. So you get into the car and you can't wear a mask or something, and then the Lyft driver or the Uber driver will make a comment or will somehow flag you as a passenger that is not following the rules, right? So then you get cut off from that option for transportation.
Right, exactly. Well,
now
we got banned from.
I'm pretty sure that Z Trip like flagged us because over almost 2 years ago, we, you know, it's been 22 months since the so-called pandemic, right? So, you know, our friend came to visit from Chicago, and we got a Z Trip, and the driver was like, "I need you to wear a mask." You know, this was in 2020, and I was like, I don't wear a mask, you know, and he did the whole Donald Sutherland thing, and then split, you know. And so and ever since then we haven't been able to get a taxi from Z Trip at all.
We know that Z Trip has been cut back because
big time.
We've talked to people that are also experiencing.
So it's not just us.
But before all that happened, we were we were
definitely flagged as, you know, not the right kind of customer or whatever. So what you have is you have these stories that were coming out in 2020, especially, where, you know, passengers were being flagged as, you know, not following the rules because they weren't wearing something over their face, and this was really infringing on their, you know, movement. Like they couldn't get a Lyft and they couldn't get an Uber. Well, in Pittsburgh, you know, I don't think that Lyft drivers and Uber drivers can really afford to push away business the way they can in places like New York or London or San Francisco.
Maybe now, but I think before, you know,
I don't even think now.
Well,
like, I don't think anybody's going to push a customer away now.
At the same time, though, you know, this guy that I talk to now and then who visits our neighbors, he pulls up. He was a Lyft driver or an Uber driver, and he wasn't wearing a mask, and the rider, the person that he was giving a ride to, turned him in.
Right.
And
For not wearing a mask.
And they did it in a very like passive aggressive
way.
Of
course.
Right.
That's the world we live in now, where everything's done on a social credit score.
Right.
So instead of actually engaging with the driver, and having the passenger say, you know, driver, is there a reason you're not wearing a mask? I would feel safer if you could wear a mask, and you know, then they could talk it through. At which point the driver would say, oh, sure, I'll put on a mask for you, no problem. And there's no reason to go after him through the digital service platform and affect not only his social credit score, but then he was removed from the option of driving a Lyft or an Uber anymore. So he lost his income.
Right.
So he's basically fired.
Right.
You know, because this person did this really passive aggressive, totally San Francisco way of doing things, which is you just circumvent any kind of human interaction and any kind
or
of
confrontation,
or any kind of human confrontation, and you just go online and you just write a nasty review and you get people fired.
Okay.
You
So
know?
Rebel Egg says, my son was refused by Lyft because he was unmasked last Saturday. So it is taking place. It is going on.
Wow.
We had our you know, we had our buffs, our gaiters.
We don't wear a mask.
It was cold last night. We had them on and put them up to get in, but like it was dark. So once we were in the van, you know, or the minivan that he was driving, I just took mine off, and it was fine. But
you know, and I just kept talking to him the whole time to get him kind of to kind of distract him from, you know, from noticing that we weren't wearing anything over our face.
Yeah. So,
but we moved here. We moved to this neighborhood specifically because the bus takes you to downtown Pittsburgh in 15 minutes.
Right.
And the bus stop is literally like a 3-minute walk, if that, from our front door. So we chose this house for that reason. And over the last few weeks, the bus simply hasn't showed up. It didn't show up on my birthday.
Yeah.
The bus was supposed to show up till 7 or at 7 o'clock. It didn't show up till 8:30. So there was 90 minutes of just waiting around, wondering where the freaking bus was.
Yeah.
Same thing happened last night. We were in downtown Pittsburgh and wanted to come back. It's a 15-minute bus ride. There's no excuse whatsoever for these buses not to be on schedule and, you know, keeping their routes.
And the next one that was supposed to show up after the one we were supposed to catch was an hour.
Right. It was an hour, and it would have been the last one. And there were a lot of people waiting for the bus last night. It was Friday night. You know, there were a lot of people coming off their shifts, going home, you know, and people, you know, so how does this tie in with the shootings? Well, you know, so these constant shootings, which is nothing but theater, they're not real. You know, I am convinced that today when the 15 rounds went off, so JP and I were here at the house and we heard it, and it sounded like spray, like a machine gun spray, you know, like that, you know, it was like 15 rounds or something. And it was literally like a block from our house. I am convinced that if I had walked out there, that if I was there walking around on Broadway, which is where it took place in my neighborhood, and he started doing that he would have and I would have been standing there, he would have shot, avoided me. And you know what I'm saying? He would have shot, avoided me, and there would have been an outline of my body like on the wall, because it's not meant to cause you physical harm. It's meant to terrorize you. It's terrorism, so that you leave the neighborhood. So like I just read in my post, so that all the really cool little shops here, the little bakeries, the pizza place, you know, the movie theater that's within walking distance to our house, and all the people that live here and contribute to this little local economy, that they'll all just split and go live, you know, in a more concentrated, surveilled area of Pittsburgh. Like that's the goal, is to get people to just flee their homes. It's not to hurt anyone. That's why we're not threatened by it. And it just so happens it provides a good excuse for Port Authority to say, oh, well, you know, we heard that the streets were blocked off because of a shooting, so we couldn't come pick you up. It's like, really?
Well,
You know?
less than a mile away is a strip club.
Right.
Okay.
We have strip clubs in our
And
area.
and there was one. There was
How are the strippers supposed to go do their job? Like during during the pandemic, at the beginning of the pandemic, and the buses were luckily running on time back then, there were lots of strippers on the bus, like putting their makeup on and shit.
And you did you talk to them or did
Yeah.
you overhear them?
I overheard them. They were talking about how their drivers were too afraid of the virus. So the strippers in our neighborhood that do their job stripping at the strip club,
which one
they get picked up from their apartments or their homes, and they get driven to the club. So they don't take public transportation and they don't drive themselves. Typically, I'm guessing some of them do drive themselves, but they have drivers. And
that's
the club,
that's what these girls are talking about.
the
anyway,
club provides the drivers, but the drivers were too scared, too scared of the virus. So the poor strippers had to like take the goddamn bus, and they're like trying to put their makeup on while the bus is like bumping along. And,
That's always fun.
and you know, they were complaining about the drivers being such fucking pussies for not, you know,
Well, and you have to take
driving
2 buses to get anywhere in Pittsburgh.
right.
So it depends on
Exactly.
where
So
you're
who
going,
knows
yeah.
where they were coming from? But anyway, so that's
But the reason I brought up the strip club is because there was a shooting at a local strip club
like last week.
like last week or something.
It was literally,
and
like,
it was in the news that the shooter, I kid you not, was like what, 12 years old?
Like a 12-year-old white
Come
guy.
on. Are you kidding?
on.
We saw the picture of the kid and we're like, uh-huh.
That's a deep fake.
yeah,
like
I'm
it's
sure-
not a real person.
I mean, how would because I've seen the bouncers that work there. How did that kid get past? I know,
Please.
come on.
He's
Even if he had had a gun in his hand, the bouncer would have been like,
not true.
Yeah.
None of these shootings are
bullshit.
real.
Yeah.
We had a shooting
Like literally outside
our front door. We were watching Netflix
and
on
he
the couch.
he was walking down the street
and he was going like this.
shooting forward.
And he was being really theatrical about it. Like
Right.
like really like he had trained to do this, like it was a training exercise or something. And so JP's like peeking out over the wall of our porch, and he crawls back into the house. He's like, you might want to get down on the floor. I'm like, okay. So I like hit the floor. But
no, we're not saying that they were blanks, because there were cases.
yeah,
on
they're
the
real
ground.
bullets, but
and-
they're not meant to hurt people. They're
Right.
meant to scare the shit out of people.
Mhm.
And they really did, because our poor neighbors who live across the street from us, who had all the shell casings in their front yard, were completely disillusioned. They have been here for how many generations? Like
Yeah.
5 generations.
Yeah.
Like the guy and his wife and their daughter and their grandson live in the house that he grew up in, basically.
Yeah.
And he's never experienced anything like this. And they were just in total trauma.
Mhm.
And it was just shocking.
And you know what was
poor
what
things.
else-
I feel so bad. Like it's just
Yeah. No,
you
you're
know,
not being
and
sarcastic either.
I'm not being sarcastic. Like I'm literally saying, like, it's theater, and these poor people are being traumatized because of theater.
Right. And just so happens that their ring, which would have recorded this, was out.
Yeah. So the thing, that's the whole thing about this neighborhood too, is they invest in, Amazon Spy Kit Sidewalk or whatever, which we did a really funny, cheeky video.
Go back and look at our video.
Go to our YouTube channel and look at our videos.
Or go to Rokfin instead.
Or go to Rokfin.
And you'll see Sidewalk Spy Kit.
Sidewalk Spy Kit. So they invest in rings, which are,
surveillance
devices that surveil. They have a wide reach. They can surveil like everything. So they go to the trouble of investing in these surveillance kits, but they're not. The surveillance kits are also controlled remotely, right?
They can be.
So suddenly
they can be. Yeah.
Suddenly, out of nowhere, and this has happened many, many times in this neighborhood. A friend of ours who lives, a few blocks away, same thing happened. Suddenly, out of nowhere, these surveillance devices just stop working whenever there's a shooting. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That's because they're not real. That's because they're just theater,
Yeah.
And so now what happens is the neighbors start to suspect each other and start to distrust each other. And they're like, oh, well, anybody with red tennis shoes is probably the culprit,
Right.
and
Yeah,
they
'cause
just, they
the
start
shooter
saying
today-
the craziest
the
things.
shooter today had a white hoodie and red sneakers, right?
Really, I have red sneakers and a white hoodie. Come on, so it's like, I don't believe, I mean, we moved here in August of 2018, and then less than 2 months later was the big, huge synagogue shooting that the whole world came out for. Remember that? All I had to do was use my thumb and my forefinger
And start doing some research.
and do a teeny bit of research that took about 10 minutes.
We were literally on the bus looking at our phones, and we were looking at the synagogue blog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're like, there's nothing going on. And there is a whole background story about the synagogue that is really political and really strange. So we knew immediately it was theater, but all of Pittsburgh was like, oh my God,
And that
oh my
synagogue is
God.
still closed. So basically, they've closed a community.
They've closed down a community on purpose.
Right.
Knowing full well. So what they had to do was close down these communities, knowing full well that something really big was just around the corner.
Yeah.
What could it be? So they closed down the communities, get the community to scatter and get all traumatized, and then COVID. So no one's there to help each other. No one's there to talk to each other and maybe provide some rational dialogue and rational discourse into the other trauma-inducing, terrorist plot called
Right.
COVID.
Right.
So it's really hard to take us seriously with these things on our head. I know, but 'tis the season we wanted to. And we're not going to be doing this on October 31st. We're going to be handing out candy.
That's right.
To the children.
Yeah, so the cheer. Yep.
Yeah, assuming they still let the children.
I know, right?
Have,
yeah, they might cancel it.
Yes, and so let me just finish out this whole
This
whole segment about the shootings that constantly take place in our neighborhood. I'm not afraid at all. I'm not afraid of any kind of violence. Thanks for saying we look adorable. I'm not afraid of any kind of violence at all. Like, I'm not afraid of the violence. But the children that live around here that hear the sound of gunfire. Okay, imagine being 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. There are lots of kids on our block. The second they come home from school, when the weather's nice, they are out there on their bikes. They are loud. Like, we like to keep our windows
and
open.
I like to see that.
Oh my God, we love it. And the hi Sherry B. So sometimes when we're on the phone with friends or doing a kind of like a video call with a friend, and suddenly like they'll hear all the noise of the kids running around. They're like, wow, those kids are really noisy. And we're like, yeah,
it's good. No, it's good.
Or if we're working on a project and we're talking to someone else, it's like, don't worry about the kids. They're having a good time. But anyway, so the point is that all of the shootings in the neighborhood are traumatizing the children. So I think the thing that really got me really angry about today's shooting, again, it was 15 rounds or so, was that a friend of ours runs a very small, very localized little paper. It's just a tiny little, it's just for the community.
It's the community paper.
It's all just community stuff, right? And she was working on the paper today with her little boy. Her little boy, who's probably like about 7 now. I think when we first met them, he was like 5. So it's been a few years. So maybe he's like 7 or 8. And she mentioned how she had to grab him and pull him to the back of the office and cover him. Like, can you imagine? I mean,
well, this is all about traumatizing people and children and everyone involved.
I don't agree with her politics. I don't agree with her views on COVID. She probably has received the countermeasure, the medical intervention. I don't agree with that. She'll probably do it to her son. There are lots of things about this particular person and many people in our community that I don't agree with the choices that they've made. But I will totally stand in solidarity with them when it comes to the trauma that these little kids have to endure as a result of these ongoing
Right.
theatrics called, shootings.
So it may be. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, go on.
So it may
Yeah.
be that they'll the wisdom of the township council will be, well, because of these shootings, because of this violence, we're gonna just have to cancel Halloween, right? So this is a way of like taking things away from people.
It's such
taking
bullshit.
traditions,
And I can see it. I know that that's probably going to be the
probably
next.
going to happen. Or
and we got all this candy from
from the Aldi. So so it's just a way of taking away our interactions with each other. The masking was all about that. The social distancing was all about that. It's taking away the commons and the discussions that we have with one another within the commons and forcing us online. And we're talking to you on one of those online channels, but we're here to kind of like give you an alternative view and say, go back out to that cafe if it still exists and start talking to people, because this is what is really required for us to build community and to and take back our community.
And I really do think that the shootings that are taking place here regularly, I mean, there was one today, then there was one last week, and then it seems like they always do it when they know people are going to be kind of either gone or maybe a little bit around, because they wait to do it like on a weekend or like a holiday weekend, because the goal isn't to harm people or kill people. The goal is to terrify those people that are around.
Right.
So I think the goal is to get those people to leave town. And, I've mentioned this before. There is a really cool venue steps away from our house. Like, it's literally like a 60-second walk, if that. You walk out our front door, walk across a little abandoned lot, and you're there. It's a little theater. And they show indie films. It is a bar, a full service bar. It is next to a pizza shop, which sells delicious pizza slices, and it's got a brew pub, an
inside.
artisanal brew pub inside.
Yeah.
And the beer is amazing, and I don't even like beer. And I love it because you walk in, and if you want to see like a jazz band or, if you want to see comedy, you don't have to show proof of a passport. You don't have to wear a mask unless you want to. There's no sign on the door. It's nothing like that. And the people who run this establishment, they sold their house, which was in another neighborhood, and moved across the street from the establishment. So my feeling is that the people that are really invested in building this community up, like the guy that sells, the cool Teresa's Italian Bakery, like the guy that sells the really cool, like they're called not
Ladylocks.
Ladylocks. They're like cannolis and all those, cookies and all sorts of
those in the Pittsburgh area probably know Teresa's, is they sell in the grocery stores and stuff. But they, in the bakery itself, they have a storefront where they sell.
And we go in every once in a while and we'll buy like a little package right off the shelf.
Oh, and they
have pierogies, right?
No, not pierogies. They have the cookies.
The cookies.
The cookies, but also like the Italian, like the coffee.
Biscotti.
Thank you.
They have really good biscotti.
Their biscotti's amazing, and it's really fresh. So yeah.
And you can smell it, like in our neighborhood.
Anise. They cook it with they bake it with anise.
Right. You can smell it. Right. Like if you were ever here, you could smell it. But anyway, so these people have been running these businesses for years, and I don't think they're going to let this theater
And Mancini's is just up the street, right? Big, regional bakery for bread. It's it's an Italian white bread. And it's whatever it's served at restaurants, but it's a favorite in this community and the general Pittsburgh area,
right?
And they're just right over here too.
I don't think that the shootings and the theater is going to affect these people. There's a couple of diners here that they're all in to keep running their businesses.
But we were having a hard time, enough time getting people out here for that first art walk because people were like, "Oh, they think that this neighborhood is dangerous," and now this is like
they've really amped up the shooting. I mean, really amped it up.
So I want to wrap this up.
Yeah. I feel like it's important to address because sustainable development. A lot of you are talking about it. A lot of you are podcasting about it. but we're living it.
Right.
We're actually living it.
This is what it's going to look like, is what we're trying to say. And if it's happening here, it's happening in other places, and I guarantee that.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, did you see our latest videos? Speaking of terrorism and crazy things going on.
Sorry about the light.
We have a video out there called Spectacle. Have you seen Spectacle? Did you know that there's a song at the end that's kind of cool? Did you know we got a copyright strike on that song, even though we took it from a place that was saying that it was copyright free and that we were allowed to use it?
Right. So all the music that we use for our video essays, and if you're not familiar with our video essays, please go and watch them. We find music that is specifically for people like us that make the content.
Right.
The artists say, feel free to use this in whatever way you want. Just maybe give us the credit.
Right. We're just required to give a credit.
You don't have to pay for it. And it's on a free site. It's called Tribe of Noise. And there's a lot of really good free music.
Yeah.
The artists just want to get their stuff out there. So, it's win-win, Well, YouTube claimed that a free song that we found was not free. And they made a claim that it was, it was a copyrighted song. And it's not.
So this was done through the YouTube platform,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And the song itself was by the same band, okay? So the same group. The weird thing is that they claimed that this song, Tribe of Noise is the name of it. Tribe of Noise.
Tribe of Noise.
The other
Sorry.
one, the other one that's really cool is associated with it, and it's I forget what it's called.
It's FMA, so Free Music Archive.
Yeah, the Free Music Archive. You can look that up as well. That's cool. Not all of that is copyright free, but you can download it to listen to it yourself, right? So there's a lot of good stuff there. But anyway, so they claimed that that this song was copyright, and that we were violating the copyright, and it was a cover song. Okay, so first of all, it sounded a little like the other one, same band, but it was a cover song. So they're making a copyright thing on a song that was a cover, and it wasn't the song that we used. And so I disputed it with YouTube, and the company that holds the copyright or defends it for the artist came back and said, nope, we're not giving up on this. You violated copyright on this song, so we now have the right to use your video to make money from the advertising revenue that comes through. And that's not right. And so what we're seeing is the copyright is now being used in a way that it never should have been used in the first place.
Right.
But something else that we wanted to talk about aside from that, because I think I'm going to do maybe a blog post or a small short video about that, is that I was pretty pissed off because I was ready to yank the damn video so that they couldn't get any revenue from it and all these things. But
to prove a point. But we're going to leave the video up because it needs to get seen, so.
Thank you for posting that. So the thing that came back, we believe, is an automated response that basically whoever is behind this, there's a company, I looked them up, they exist, but they're using automation to do their work for them because they can't keep track of all this stuff. The automation, obviously, they use it to keep track of like any song that might be getting used, that they hold a copyright for their artists that they work with. But then the follow-up, we believe, was also automated.
So this, I guess the whole point of this is not to too much complain about the fact that they accused us of using a copyrighted song, which it's not a copyrighted song, it's a free song. And then they're like, you used this copyrighted song. And then the song that they told us that we used was a different song, a completely different song from the one that we actually did use.
Do you know what song they thought it was? Shake some action where I go. I don't even know the lyrics. They won't know. Look up the Flaming Groovies.
Yeah. So anyway, the point I think that we're making with this whole story about the song is that we think it was AI that ran the algorithm, picked out, a piece of the song we used, which sounds a little bit similar to the other song.
Right.
And then said, and then dinged us and said, copyright strike. And when we came back and said, no, it's not, it's a free song. And the song that you're claiming that we're using is not even the song that we did use.
Right.
We think that our whole interaction was with AI. We don't think a human was involved in this interaction at all.
And for
Is
those of
what
you
we're trying to say.
for those of you keeping score, AI is artificial intelligence.
Right. So, and for those of you who are saying that artificial intelligence and AI is so,
Advanced.
it's so advanced and so smart and so intelligent. No, it's not.
It's
not as advanced as you think it is.
Right.
It's really not.
Yeah.
It's really not.
We wanted to show. I was asking Julie. She read me a writing sample of some artificial intelligence written content, and I don't know if you found it or not, but it was just
It's on your page.
listening to it. Well, yeah, there was this other thing that was going on, and a bunch of people commented on it. This alleged woman wanted to friend me. And she had a reasonably, real name, but the message was just like gibberish and weird, and
Yeah.
I was just like,
hello, am now here and am looking for a friend and don't like scammer. That's AI. So they're not that advanced. They can't even grasp the English language.
This woman,
some humans can't either.
They can, but this woman was a persona.
Mm-hmm.
And
like a fake picture that they used.
Yeah. So you can create these images. They may even just grab images just randomly out there. And anyway, so you have a persona, and you write, gibberish or whatever.
Do you like our kitty cats, by the way?
Yeah.
Do you like our kitty cats? These are These are our black cats with
jewel encrusted black cats.
You can't tell, but they're kind of like a Day of the Dead
kind
of looking cats.
Kind of like this.
Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to just bring that up because they're actually earrings, but they're way too big for my ears. So I was like, let's just make them into pins.
Right. So artificial intelligence is being used to write articles, and it has been for the last, maybe 10 years it's been coming around. You can, and you'll see like all the counter articles that come out about like, COVID or whatever.
Right.
And we do not need a black cat. We have a little kitty cat named Roxy. And
there are so many cats
and
that
there's
need
lots
homes.
of cats around here. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Our neighbor found a black cat. So
the black cat found her.
Right.
It showed up and it would not let go. It tried to jump into her parents' car. It followed her down the street when she went to go buy bread.
Yeah. So we have lots of cats around here.
Lots of cats. Why Rebel Egg? Do you have a black cat that needs a home? Let us know in the chat. Oh man, that's so sad.
So it is.
Oh
Roxanne.
wow,
that's awesome.
How funny. Yeah, so you have a cat named Roxanne and we have a cat named Roxy. We named her because we live in McKees Rock, so we named her Roxy.
Exactly. So we've been finding that artificial intelligence is getting more and more advanced, but like John Stepling was talking about a while ago, it's like it's not as advanced as you think it is, and
it's not.
It will come around, but right now it's just not where everyone thinks it is, and I don't think it'll be applied quite as harshly as people think it is, because I don't think it's going to be able to do the things that people think it will be doing in the near future. So it just just like we were
keep your feet on the ground, and
that's right.
Don't let all this scary stuff get to you.
Keep your your finger to the wind, and your feet on the ground and your ears open, and
just be real.
Duck the radar, duck the 5G.
Yeah, that's not to say that that
stuff is happening. We're not denying these things are happening. Right. We do know that they're happening, just like the Sustainable Development Goals, and what we're trying to do is describe how they're being implemented. What's next?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, so I don't know if any of you have ever heard of a guy named Max Egan. There's probably some fans out there, but Max left Australia allegedly and moved to Mexico.
Max is a wuss.
So I don't know why he moved to Mexico of all places. Because
actually
it's not
free
that great
as you think it is.
Right, exactly. And
it's probably more free here.
We've been talking to some people that, where, in some places it's decent, in some places it's not. And depending on your income level, you will have a different experience. Just like here, right? So we had a friend that moved there from England, and she's having a horrible time because she's not the richest person around. But we
Mhm.
know other people who have a little better income and they're having a fine time. And I'm sure Max is just fine.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to say is, why are you moving to Mexico? Why is it that you are giving up on, or running away? Because I'll tell you that, what we're finding is, there is just no perfect place.
Mm-mm.
And I
Hi,
feel like
Don.
it. Hi, Don.
Thanks for joining.
We feel that it's time to like stand up and fight back. And
Yeah,
if you have to
yeah.
fight, and not fight back like, people are like, I've got guns and I've got this.
No,
No, not that way.
Just-
Stand up for your life and your life, the way that you live.
Right.
They're trying to take away these things. And, granted, sure, there's a lot of messed up things that are going on with society and have been going on, but a lot of these things have been foisted on us, or we've been convinced we need them. And we're living a life that isn't necessarily, that's pretty out of balance. Okay.
Yes,
But
definitely.
at the same time, running away. Now, we left San Francisco, but we didn't leave the country.
No, we moved from one, demographic to another
Mhm.
because we we took, took stock of our life and realized that we could stay and live in a tent based
Right.
on our income,
Mhm.
or we could,
Have a richer life.
have a better life, even though it's, a much different demographic
Mhm.
and there's shootings and all that
But
stuff.
the thing is the violence in San Francisco is random, whereas here it's like people know each other. The people who perpetrate the violence know each other, except for these theatrical things that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
But
Well, let's just go back to the so-called violence in San Francisco.
Mhm.
The violence in San Francisco that many people are the victim of is perpetuated or it's made by the state. So it's usually some kind of system in place that targets individuals, like I was targeted in
Mhm.
San Francisco.
Right.
And friends of mine were used by the systems that were angry with me for
describing it.
and telling the truth about it. So they used a circumstance and used friends in order to try to throw me in jail for 5 years. That is real violence,
Mhm.
not these shootings that take place all the time in our neighborhood where nobody ever dies and it's just theater to try to get people to leave.
The ones where people do get hurt and die, those are between people.
Those are,
that
those
know each
are
other.
separate issues that are personal issues. Maybe, a drug deal went bad or whatever, that's that. And there's a history there. But real violence, the actual violence that's, perpetrated on innocent people is violence of the state, where you are accused of something that isn't true and could possibly face like the end of your life as you know it as a result of that. And that almost happened to me in lovely San Francisco.
Yeah.
So, it's a violent city in that sense.
Mhm.
It's violent against the unhoused, forcing taxpayers to pay upwards of $60,000 for tents, for the unhoused in the middle of a so-called pandemic.
Right. Yeah.
It's violence
Well,
against
creating a situation where people are living on the street.
right.
And-
Making it so that's violence when
Yeah.
you perpetuate poverty and you make it so that people can't get off of their addictions.
Right.
And we'll transition into harm reduction in a minute.
Well,
So
we
I really
were
wanted to
actually-
focus on what violence really is.
We weren't
what
going to
the-
really cover that.
Oh, we
today.
weren't?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, why
We
not?
can-
I
we
thought
can-
we were.
well,
I thought
no,
we were going to talk about it a little bit.
Okay, we can talk about it a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so what the point that we were trying to make with this whole thing with Max Egan is that you don't need to go to Mexico.
Just
Go to Belize instead. No, I'm kidding. It's on the Yucatan Peninsula. It's the same part of the world, more or less. It's just on the East Coast, not on the West.
Or go
But-
to a neighborhood that you
Right.
would never, ever, ever in a million years, like either in the United States or in Canada or wherever you're from,
There are
and go move there.
There are vast amounts of communities out in the United States that have either been abandoned or have been, hurt by the economic, terrorism that's put upon them by the state and by corporations, We visited West Virginia about a year ago,
Move to West Virginia.
and there were lovely
It's
little towns
beautiful.
all over. I thought it
Mhm.
was going to be. I really thought it was going to be. I'm going to see snake handlers and banjo picking. Six-toed. No, I'm kidding. But you know what I'm saying. I mean, we did go to this one little area that was like a little bump in the road, and you had to cross railroad tracks to get over to where the store and the houses were. But there were some guys sitting on the porch of this like general store. I mean, it was almost a cliche. They were like
I know.
right out of like central casting, but they were really cool to us.
I know.
Right? And they were
Yeah.
really nice guys, and we were talking to them, and they were commenting on the fact that we were driving a zip car, and it had a
Like Connecticut
Connecticut
plates.
license plate, right? And they're like,
A zip
wow,
car
you guys,
is like a rental car that
Yeah.
we.
they're like, oh, you guys are far from home. And we're like, no, we're from nearby.
Oh,
But,
really,
yeah.
Don? West Virginia.
Awesome.
Awesome.
But it's a beautiful state.
So if you're upset with your bucolic bougie neighborhood that's being super fascist and making you wear a mask just to go buy milk or get a coffee, and you're thinking that you want to leave these really compact urban environments like London or like Toronto
Or
or
San
like
Francisco.
San Francisco or New York, and you're like, I just want to escape to freedom. Well, why don't you go move to West Virginia?
or
They could use your money.
or
know?
I mean, traveling across the country in the U-Haul, I saw, and I just was on
There's
80.
a lot of
I was
places.
just on Highway 80, and I was impressed with the country. I always thought that some of these places, that were described to me as horrible places, were actually pretty nice. I mean, I enjoyed driving across Nebraska. I enjoyed Iowa. I enjoyed Ohio. All these places have communities that probably could use some revitalization. Now, we are not endorsing
like gentrification.
in any right.
But what I'm
in
saying
any
is
sense
that
of the word.
if you can, if you can afford to leave your area and move to Mexico, then maybe you can afford to, buy an old house and fix it up, and, in a neighborhood that, just because it's not fancy, that would probably would benefit from you more than maybe Mexico would.
Mhm.
Yeah. So see, I like Rebel Egg because she stays put, and that's ultimately what people should be doing is
Holding the line.
holding the line and staying where you live.
Mhm.
JP and I could have left, this neighborhood where we live, where there's like serious trauma-inducing shootings every week. We could have left, a while ago, probably sold this house and turned it over and flipped it, and maybe got a condo in a fancier neighborhood. But no, we put way too much into this house. We
Well,
love this house.
yeah.
We like our neighbors.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
going to stay because we're not afraid.
Yeah, and
you
our
know?
choice to leave California was a completely different one. And,
Yeah.
and we both we're both Californians. We both miss our home. We miss the ocean, and we do miss these things. But
Big
at the
time.
same time, we have workarounds and we have ways, and there are advantages that we've discovered living here that we did not have living there.
Right.
And so, we are reinvesting in another part of the country. Let's just put it that way. And this is what we're saying. Don't go to Mexico. Reinvest in where you live and find
Right.
places that are reasonably priced, and that you can find a new home and a new community to live in. And it's not going to be like where you were before. You will not have access to the things you had before unless you go to maybe a more expensive enclave. But what we're saying is this is time. Yeah, we have rivers.
Yeah.
And when I was driving the bus, the kids asked me if sharks were in the rivers.
I'm like, what kind of education are you getting
Exactly.
that you think that there's sharks in the rivers? Oh boy.
Yeah, but so it's there are places that you can go to that will replace things that you don't have now in ways that you don't have them, and they will be different, but they'll be a different experience. So what we're saying is don't run away to Mexico. Don't be like Max Egan.
Yeah, but at the same time, we don't want to fault people or be too hard on people that do. For instance, this young lady that that we know who left London and went to Mexico. I feel that she is a different kind of person, and that was probably the appropriate thing to do. She's been in other countries too, like I think
That's true.
Peru or Paraguay or something, you know, at some point in her life. So she appreciates, you know, the climate and the culture of, you know, countries like Mexico. So, and she's by herself, so she can kind of do what she wants.
But she ran into a lot of trouble. I mean, not like with the law, but just like she's having a difficult time there, and we feel bad for her.
We do.
You know, I'm not laughing at her. I'm just like expressing my frustration with
some of the things that she's saying. I'm just like, oh my god, that's so like really horrible. I thought it was bad, you know, that we were like having to avoid possibly being fake shot at, and I say fake, like I really mean it's fake. But you hit the floor because of those fake bullets.
Well, no, those are real bullets.
They're real bullets, but hit the floor because I will never ever touch you.
So people are having they're really scared about Facebook going down for some reason.
Okay. Oh no! One more thing to be like terrified about.
Apparently, they're going to change the name, and we miss SoCal too. Or I grew up in SoCal. I miss California in general.
Yeah, we're not big fans of Dollar Vigilante either.
But,
at all.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm
but,
not. You know, the 4th of July, you guys, LOL, right? Right. Right.
San Francisco, the 4th of July in San Francisco is pink fog flashing.
You know, so, basically.
Yeah, and it's cold. But anyway, so
Facebook going down
and changing its name and maybe changing ownership or something. That's all. Don't worry about that. By the way, if it does go down and you lose contact with us on Facebook, we happen to have a Twitter account.
You can follow us on Twitter.
So it's Book of Hours Julie and at Book of Hours JP. In fact, we are streaming not only to Rokfin, Facebook.
Are we
YouTube.
Streaming to Twitter right now?
We should be streaming to Twitter because we have a new setup.
Can we open up my Twitter account so people can see what it looks like?
Sure.
Can we bring it out?
Yeah, let me see what I can do about that.
Let me see if I can pull up my Twitter account on my device. Bear with us, guys. But yeah, you know, we really don't feel that there's going to be just type in B.
Yeah,
and there it is right there.
But anyway.
Yeah, it does it again. It's just weird. Okay. And then log in.
Okay.
And then go to profile.
Yeah.
And there I am.
All right. So let me share this, guys. And she's known as Ghoulie right now because it's October and nearly Halloween. So you can follow Julie, and you can also see me on Twitter as well. See, look, we're streaming to.
Oh wow, we are.
So as you can see, we're.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Twitter.
Yeah.
Thanks for not being too weird like Facebook is. This
right?
is great.
Yeah. So.
What?
Yeah, that's
awesome.
That's pretty awesome.
Wow.
And she's at Book of Hours Julie.
Or Ghoulie,
and I'm
for the month of October only.
Right, and I'm at Book of Hours JP. So so that's cool. And hello to our Rokfin.
Hey, Rokfin.
Yeah. All right, so cool. Let's see. Okay, so earlier we were talking about the Lyft and Uber drivers, and they're being put on a platform that they have to use to get work, and it's called a digital services platform. There's other sorts of digital service platforms out there. There's something called guru.com, which I used early on, like 20 years ago, and it's for like people who code or create apps or do design work, graphic design or design websites or whatever it is. And what I found was it was dismal. It was a dismal place to work, to find work, because I never found anything. It's because I was working in San Francisco, but I was competing against people who lived in places that had, very low cost of living, like, parts of India, South Africa, other places where they had the same skill sets or more or less the same skill sets, but they could hire themselves out for a lot less money than I could. And so you're dealing with race to the bottom pricing. and services that clients may or may not value in terms of cost. They would rather have something cheap than maybe something, better quality from somebody who had more experience. Experience doesn't matter. Cost does. And so, these things are going to be the platforms that we're all going to be pushed towards. And it's very disheartening. Those of you who are, self-employed, you're going to start facing competition. One of the things that we experienced was this company that provides like a home warranty. And what we're feeling is like the home warranty company is becoming one of these digital service platforms where
they're useless.
Where people who own plumbing companies or electricians or whatever get these jobs that come to them on these platforms, on their computer or their phone. And then they just go, okay, well, I'll take that job. And they get paid a flat rate or whatever. Or, what I feel is going to happen is it's going to be more like TaskRabbit or Guru or these other platforms that basically you have to bid on the jobs and you have to provide a price. And it's going to be, the lowest price and the highest credit score, it will win. So like, we noticed, with like the Lyft drivers and Uber drivers, they're going to, they have a score at the end, score your driver. And I was talking to a Lyft driver a few years ago, and they were talking about how Lyft expects 5 stars all the time. And that's the highest, score you can give a driver. They start asking questions of the drivers if they're only getting 4 stars. Now, whoever does testing and statistical research knows that a consistently high score or a consistently low score, there's something skewed there. There's something that's not quite right. And yet these companies are demanding that these drivers that work for them as independent contractors have a consistently high score. So they're skewing the numbers, and they're basically, this is a new form of social credit score that's going to be happening to people who are workers. Okay. And so killing the cab companies and forcing people who drive for a living into these
platforms, into these task kind of platforms.
And I feel
Uber and Lyft.
And I feel like, something like Angie's List is going to turn into something like that as well, to where, again, tradesmen, self-employed individuals are going to be, dealing with this. And so we're going to see less and less people, being able to be self-employed truly, and they're going to have to depend on, platforms like this.
Right.
And so that is our transition into our next feature, which is we're going to actually show Globotics.
Yeah, so we're going to stream it right now. It's about 25 minutes. We're going to stream it for you guys, and then when it's done streaming, we'll come back and wrap it up.
Hey, Julie, do you want to see the promo for Globotics?
No.
Okay.
I'd rather just show the the whole thing.
Let's share our screen here. So without further ado, we're going to show our video Globotics, and it goes something like this. Economist Richard Baldwin, author of Globotics Upheaval, spoke at a World Economic Forum meeting in China in 2018, just before the publication of his book. In this talk, he asked the audience to imagine living in a Star Trek world where workers could teleport from one part of the globe to another. He gave an example of accountants from Warsaw, Poland, teleporting to New York City in the morning and back to Warsaw at the end of the day. He gave this example because he wanted to point out that accountants in New York make more money than accountants from Warsaw. So economically, from an employer's point of view, if it was physically possible to have people from one part of the world who worked for less money commute to another part of the world where the cost of living was high, then it made sense to do that. But what happens to the displaced accountants from New York? Where do they go if their jobs are taken by people who work for less? This, of course, is what happened when factory jobs in the US went away and factories moved to other countries where the cost of labor was less. In this case, the factories moved, not the people. And so, as Baldwin tells us,
you should be a little more nervous and a little more excited about future globalization.
In another talk he gave a year or two later, he talked more about what he called telemigration, which is just a fancy word for digital service platforms for freelancers like Fiverr, Guru, or Upwork. And as we've stated before, these are jobs where the freelance workers compete with other workers around the world at race-to-the-bottom pricing. That's because in order to get noticed and get work, a worker on these types of platforms needs reviews and scores, and in the future, badges or tokens that are your credentials and provide a certified form of trust for the hiring manager or client. So to get these credentials and reviews, the worker lowers their prices to nearly free. This is not about the automation of work and more leisure time in our lives. This is about your further enslavement to the machine. This is Globotics. This is the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Self-destruct sequence.
The trust that employers have in your future worker self will no longer be part of your personal interactions, your character, or the kinds of qualities you portray or relay in an interview. Your trust will be digitized and tokenized. That trust will no longer be the kind of information that in the past was conveyed face-to-face in person. But what about the robots? You know, the botics in Globotics. We'll get there in a bit, but as you know, robots have been replacing humans in factories and manufacturing for years. Now through artificial intelligence, software robots are replacing white-collar jobs and will continue to do so exponentially in the years to come. This will only leave the top end of the managerial class in place to oversee the robotic minions of the future.
Get out of the way, puny humans. We have work to do.
Okay, but before we get there, we have to talk about what is happening now, how it will get there, and what that means for everyone, because this thing will be a form of slavery, and it's coming for all of us. White collar, blue collar, pink collar, no collar. It's likely we'll all end up on these platforms. Even if you don't work on a computer but provide in-person services like plumbing or cutting hair or making deliveries, those jobs will be on some sort of digital platform. The platforms and services which can easily be converted to this model already exist. TaskRabbit, Uber, Angie's List, and others will be how we get work and make a living.
But like we mentioned before a moment ago, we will be in competition with other people bidding on jobs that come along, based mostly on low price and good reviews rather than quality work. This happened to designers and coders when Guru started up, and it happened to taxi drivers all over the world when Uber and Lyft came along. Not only will workers have to work for very little money, these jobs will require constant updates in authenticated training and education, which will often cost more than what a worker makes through the gig jobs that they get. And it's the digital service platform jobs that will be a gateway for the robots.
Hooray for robots!
That we're talking about. Although AI software has been developed over the past few decades, it's only been in the last few years that it's become more feasible for replacing jobs in all sectors, and we have been the teachers. artificial intelligence is built through machine learning. Machine learning is developed through structured learning sets. These provide the types of knowledge and information that humans know instinctively. We've been teaching the machines through our interactions on social media by posting photos, opinions, thoughts, and ideas. We've been providing information and data for the structured learning sets that machine learning accumulates, which is used to create the artificial intelligence software.
Things are not going back to normal. Things are not going back to normal. Things are not going back to normal.
Today, we're still providing these data sets and actually creating the code through our online activities. All our interactions, from posting photos to identifying images in the CAPTCHA security boxes, are used to identify what things are, which are the processes and ideas that create the code.
Moreover, the children are now providing free labor and coding for the future AI infrastructure through their activities on tablets and laptops while they are at school or home with online learning. Plus, augmented reality and virtual reality will add more to the machine learning data sets while using our children without really teaching them anything. That's because children are being empowered with "I did this" education through playlists that provide personalized pathways that give learners just the right learning at just the right time, at just the right place in their lives. This, of course, gives them options to earn digital certifications or badges that give employees access to rich, verifiable, and secure information about their achievements. Companies like Concentric Sky create the badges and the platforms for playlists that turn your child into a corporate report to learn what corporations want them to learn and nothing more. This type of education is not only training your children to be able to code the future digital infrastructures needed for full-scale automation, but they're also providing the code for the data sets that will be used to develop more and stronger artificial intelligence. Preschool children are also being exploited through smart play tabletops that record their actions, their expressions, and their behavior. Their interaction, their humanity, their childhood is captured and translated into data sets. In other words, our children are providing free labor and being used to code the future through being children. Now, let's talk about robot toys. Clickbot is an adorable robot designed by a Pixar animator. You know, Pixar.
To infinity and beyond!
Clickbot is marketed as a toy, and kids can play with it like a toy, but it's not really a toy. It's a device for learning. The real purpose behind Clickbot is to teach children how to code. The marketing around the toy ironically feels nostalgic as it takes its cue from how classic toys have always been displayed in boxes, their appeal to children when the boxes are opened, and how each component is easy to snap together, kind of like Legos. But unlike Legos, its simple, clean lines and one basic color keep the child focused on all the different ways Clickbot can be reshaped. It can be an alien, a dog, a spider, a wall climber, and a selfie stick. Think of it this way. Children are now the assembly line workers, similar to how uneducated adults were the assembly line workers in Henry Ford's innovations. This assembly line concept for Clickbot is Blockly programming. And in the way specific shapes, designs, and machines were put together to build the cars, Clickbot, along with Blockly coding, is simply moving shapes around, and it helps to see these shapes in fun designs that click together to create the companion robot that you and your child control. But at least Henry Ford's assembly line workers were paid for their work. With Clickbot, and all the learning of the necessary components of coding technology, parents will be on the hook for paying for their kids to build the future. Starting out at $400 for this learning device, masquerading as the next must-have toy, seems a hefty price to pay to watch their kids basically be slave coders of 4IR technology. What we see with Clickbot is something we talk about consistently throughout our video essays. We are witnessing innovations that create the class divide. Do you think your kids can afford a $400 toy with all the bells and whistles? Can you afford to buy the latest iPad or other devices, which is the platform required to interface with Clickbot? What about the upgrades needed once the next innovation of Clickbot rolls out? By not being able to afford something like Clickbot and learn the valuable coding lessons that come with it, what sort of opportunity will your kids miss out on simply because you can't justify spending $400, $600, or $1,000 or more on a simple robot toy? Or do you feel this investment is worth it to give your child access to a meritocracy he was not born into? Devices, I mean toys like Clickbot or any similar learning devices at their fingertips, are training the children to be the managers of the future. They will have the skill set, they will have earned their badges, and their dashboards will represent a higher rank, making them more appealing to agencies and potential employers, giving them a competitive edge in the technology being rolled out in the fourth industrial revolution.
But there's something else we need to talk about. In the interim, after we've all been trained to stay at home because geofencing and mobile devices will either keep us in place within certain geographic boundaries or allow us to move about more freely. And through tracking and tracing our personal data, our income, the amount of debt we have, and our health is all being fed into the system, eventually ending up on blockchain ledgers. The next step after that will be haptic technologies, avatars or synthetic versions of ourselves. Through digital service platforms, remote work through controlling haptic robotics will allow you to stock shelves in a Whole Foods market in San Francisco or clean toilets in a Manhattan hotel from your own home somewhere else completely. And so, like the accountants from Warsaw working in New York, you will be doing whatever work you're qualified for at a cheaper rate than you might have before, bidding against other workers and getting paid in micropayments. But it gets even better. As these jobs become more complicated, requiring more skill sets and training, we'll need to upgrade our education. But this will cost money, and it will be up to us to pay for it. And like college education in the past, workers in a lifelong learning world will constantly be in debt in order to stay competitive. The cost of working will keep you in debt, and you'll need to keep working to pay off that debt.
All the while, there will be no chance for workers to organize because they are busy competing against each other for the scraps of work that will be available, as well as being physically separated. And competition is what economists like Richard Baldwin think is good.
Please be gentle, I'm just an economist.
Not only that, but recently the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, or the PRO Act, the strongest set of labor protections seen in this country in decades. But freelancers, their classification and their right to organize to get the same kinds of benefits and pay that full-time and especially unionized employees get, have been left out. So, with the future of work moving toward freelance employment on digital service platforms, the PRO Act is just a cynical and disingenuous move by lawmakers to placate unions and other liberal supporters.
We want more robots.
Okay, but first, let's talk about avatars and synthetic versions of yourself. In the early part of the 2000s, people played in an online environment called Second Life, in which they were represented by avatars and walked around different environments, engaging with other people who were also represented through graphic avatars.
More recently, Verbella has been given an opportunity through the COVID office closures to create 3D office environments, with the employees represented as 3D characters. What they have developed is being tested and used in real time by companies as a proof of concept for the working environment of the future. Verbella and Second Life are now poised to create the environments that allow people to interact with each other in virtual, gamified office settings. This will no longer be what you do after work. It will be what you do all the time. And those people will be dehumanized and reduced to a cartoon figure or a 3D version of themselves, all the while interacting and speaking to others with their playlists of tasks, their badges, and their Pokemon Go work life. But whether you're working as an avatar in a 3D simulated office or stuck driving robots around a warehouse, hotel, or store, there are plans underway in the Moonshot program and Japan's Society 5.0 to merge our consciousness with artificial intelligence, cyborg technology, material science, and biotechnology built on an ultra-high-speed, low-latency global network. Framing it as liberation and equality, the technocrats and billionaires are telling us that we will be freed from the existing constraints of physical, cognitive, and perceptional capabilities, as well as geographic and economic restraints. This means that the elderly and the disabled can work too. No one will ever retire or have physical limitations for employment, and we can all compete for the same jobs.
Our physical limitations may go away, but so will our unique differences as people. That's because, in the name of equity and equality, the things that make people special, like language differences, creativity, and humor, will be part of the upload and will be distributed through the network. If you never could paint a picture or play a musical instrument, you will. But virtually, of course, because it won't be your body painting or playing music. You will be the ghost in the machine. So if that's the case, why will we need our bodies with our consciousness in the cloud? It will be more like Max Headroom than the Matrix. And your essence, your consciousness, who you are, will be trapped in a digital prison, enslaved forever, working like a machine in service to the billionaire ruling class. And now, robots.
Can
Oh my God. That is just, I love that ending. I still,
Rank us bigger.
all right.
There we
We're
go.
there. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys get a chance to go back and watch that if you.
Yeah. We're going to put it up on all the channels.
Mhm.
It'll be on our website as well.
Yeah, and it'll be free. You
Yeah.
know. So if you like our work, please support us.
Yeah.
You know, join Rokfin or be a patron and leave a tip or something.
Yeah. Rokfin. Yeah. If you go to rokfin.com/book of hours, you can leave a $2 tip or more if you want.
Yeah.
For our videos. That was called Globotics, and I love that ending. I love the
I
you
know.
know, and you know, it's funny because
It is CGI.
yeah,
you guys.
the guy the robots dancing, that is CGI.
That's computer graphic imaging.
Right.
So it's not a real robot.
Boston Dynamics are known for making the robot. In fact, people have been freaking out about their dog robot.
Oh, with the gun on
the gun on it.
Yeah, that's
that's for show, I think.
That's
show
to
of
make
strength.
it so that people freak out about it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But that video they produced, the robots dancing, they produced it, and it was to a song like "Do You Love Me?"
Oh,
Do You
right.
Know How
So
to
we
Do-"
changed the song,
we
of
changed
course.
the song. Right, exactly. But yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Copyright free song, YouTube.
Yeah,
Just so you know.
it was a copyright free song that I think we found that on YouTube as a copyright free.
Did we? I thought
Yeah.
we found it on Tribe of Noise.
We
But,
might have, yeah, but it was perfect.
yeah.
It
So the
really
best job
was.
of the future is the industrial machine technician. I agree. So that you can sabotage the
Right,
machine.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So that you can fuck it up.
Fuck it up.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah. Thank you
know.
so much for your comments and your support. And please, think hard about, like what Live Alive said earlier is, I hope that parents will be thinking about what kind of education their children are actually receiving.
Yeah.
And Sherry B says she's going to send this one to her kid. That's
Okay,
great.
that's
I'm
good.
really glad to hear
Yeah.
that.
So we'll be putting that up on the channels later on, in a
Hey, you
little
took
while.
your
Oh, I forgot to put my things back on.
you
Yeah.
took your
I
Day of the
Yeah.
Dead Skulls.
I am my
off.
Day of the Dead Skulls. Yeah. What was I going to say? One more thing about Globotics. It is the companion piece to lifelong learning. So if you want to see that, you can go back and watch lifelong learning as well. So
Yeah, what's interesting about lifelong learning is that after it's probably got about 10,000 views on it right now,
mhm.
maybe less. And you never know what your view count really is on YouTube because they really mess with the view count. So it's probably got more views on it than what it actually says. But it was actually removed by YouTube, and it was remember that remember when it was removed, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere,
It came back up.
they gave it back to us.
Yeah. Well, something else.
Which was really interesting.
It was also on a channel called Vimeo.
Oh, right.
And so was Globotics for our patrons. And Vimeo just took us down
Right.
from their platform, even
Right.
though we pay them for an account.
Mm-hmm.
They claimed that we were misbehaving. So I guess it's sort of like, going into a nightclub and paying a cover charge, but because you got a little rowdy, they had to kick you out. So
Right. And Rebel Egg just, messaged us privately and said, "Are you aware that a pop-up comes up over your page that says this page is known for sharing misinformation?" It's like, yeah. So actually YouTube, or not YouTube, but Facebook reached out to us prior to all this and said, "Oh, hey, Book of Hours, by the way, we're going to limit your reach. You're no longer allowed to ask your friends to follow your page. We're going to limit your reach. And we noticed that you're in the naughty corner because you've been sharing misinformation. So we're going to have to warn people that go to your page, that they could be susceptible to your evil ways." So, yeah, that's our response to that. So anyway, we're like, yes, we're aware. So she's like, "Were you aware that these pop-ups were coming up on your page?"
Yeah, we are.
Like,
we
yes,
are.
we're
Yeah,
aware.
because it's just fuckery from Facebook.
It is.
So
Yeah.
one of these days we're gonna get a Telegraph account.
Telegram.
Or Telegram account.
You love our evil ways. So
Yeah.
so Rebel Egg please tell our good friend Kimberly that we might want to do a live podcast from her lovely little diner.
Yeah. So
We have to
let our mutual friend know that.
let our mutual friend know that we
have to figure out how to do it.
We have to figure out how to do it. There's a lot of
we'd like to do that.
A lot of things that we would need to work out, but this is something that we've been talking about for like a whole year that we would love to do a live broadcast or some kind of event at your space.
Or at her space.
At her space.
At MySpace. Remember MySpace?
Oh my God.
Oh man.
Are we
Okay.
dating ourselves or what?
Well, we're married, so I don't know.
Huh?
Can we date ourselves if we're
No,
married?
MySpace.
I'm joking.
No, we're dating ourselves with our age.
I
For
know.
myself. Oh, Facebook lockdown. Well, what else is new? It seems like everybody we know is always in some kind of Facebook lockdown.
Well, that's why Colin Ward exists.
Yeah, that's true.
And I noticed you friended Colin as well, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm so like surprised at what Facebook will consider, justification for locking people down and putting them in Facebook jail for a month. It's literally like, cross-eyed puppy dogs and banned,
Right.
There's no rhyme nor reason to it.
You can go back and watch the video that I made earlier in the year called, what was it called? Banned?
It was called Banned.
Banned,
Yeah.
Banned, not BAND.
And he's still alive and kicking after that video.
It's so funny because they took me down completely without any warning, and I put up this video about it, and I complained hard. Put it up, and just like put it up on YouTube, and I put it up on Facebook on the Book of Hours channel, and suddenly my account came back up. So who knows why that was? Yeah.
Well, how are they supposed to keep an eye on you if they're constantly banning you?
That's part of it too, and that's
how are they supposed to lower your social credit score?
Right. And so we're thinking that they're going to need workers around. So hence the things that we were talking about with the platforms, the digital service platforms, and all these other things. They're going to need us, to continue working. So, your social credit score may go down, but you're still going to have to work for the ruling class. And so you may be cleaning toilets in Manhattan while sitting in your apartment in Iowa. So, keep that in mind.
Doesn't that sound like fun?
Yeah.
And then competing with people all over the world for that job.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
you need to know the code to tell the robot to clean the toilets in the downtown, like super swanky Manhattan hotel while you're sitting in your dumpy apartment,
with
in
your VR
Ohio,
goggles,
with your VR. Like, it's just, it's not a human experience at all.
Kimberly commented on Josh Shapiro post that what he probably meant to say is TAB us in the back.
Oh, stab us in the back.
Okay.
Do not have our back. Got 30 days for that. Got it.
Wow.
Got it.
Oh, man.
So
even when you're subtle, right?
Right.
When you're subtle.
So Iman Music says, well, cleaning toilets is difficult. Well, what
It
we're
is.
talking about is, to be honest with you, I would prefer it if human beings in the future would continue to do this kind of necessary work. But what's happening is that the coding is being created and in order for the robots to do all the work.
So the haptic technology that we were talking about in the video, and you saw the segment where the individual was had VR glasses on and going through the motions, and then the robot on the other side of the screen was stocking the shelves.
He was telling the robot to do that.
Yeah.
You see, so we would much prefer that humans just be able to keep the jobs, whatever those jobs are. We're definitely not making fun of the working class. We've been there. Like, we've cleaned toilets.
Yeah.
Like, we get it.
I was driving a school bus for a short time. Yeah.
So. Making, minimum wage. So,
right.
but
recently.
Yeah.
Recently.
So we would really, like it if those jobs could still be held by human beings,
right.
Because that human interaction is what makes it so important.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of being stuck in your apartment, like writing code for the robot to drive the kids
or
stack the shelves.
working, stacking virtual shells while wearing a glove and a visor.
Yeah.
Right. So, so these are weird. And, that
gives me a headache just to think about it.
Right. And that whole office environment thing too is really weird. It's like,
well,
people walking around.
Everybody who works in an office now is on Zoom.
Right. Yeah. So it's not that far removed.
So
or
that's the next,
Microsoft Teams. Yay.
That's the next, that's the next version of it, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, and it was weird. I was watching that video about anyway, go on.
No, Iman makes a great point, and this is something that we talked about before we showed our videos.
Yeah.
The technology actually is not there. So you are correct. Their robots are not functional enough yet to replace us. And thank you for saying that, because I think that a lot of people, a lot of podcasters, and those who understand tech and how it works are getting ahead of themselves, you know. And
so that's why I thought it was ironic. We put two videos together of the Boston robots, Boston Dynamics, where the one where's with the robots dancing. They don't do that. That's CGI.
That's CGI.
What they do actually though is pick up boxes and put them on a conveyor belt or a pallet.
Right.
Okay, and they can barely do that. So you know, that's why we put those two things together.
I was watching it and I was like, okay, so this robot is going, is picking up the box and putting it down on the pallet. Meanwhile, a human being could have done that like 5 times.
Exactly. So it's just like, come on.
Yeah. The technology is not there.
But I love the at the end. Now, so the reason that we are sure that was CGI, those dancing robots, is because the last segment there of the robot revolting and kicking the guy in the privates was basically they're a parody group and Boss Town Dynamics. And at the end of that sequence, that video, they show the guy on the green screen with the suit,
right? And
he's an actual person and he's doing that thing. So they superimpose that robot over the
the
suit.
It was an actor.
Exactly.
Pretending to get the crap beat out of him by the Boss Town dudes.
So look at Boss Town.
They're
Dynamics.
funny.
They're funny.
They're great.
Really good. Yeah.
I love parody. That we need more parody.
We do need more parody
in life in general.
Exactly.
I think more things to make fun of.
Exactly.
Everybody.
Yeah.
All
right. Well, we're getting some great comments, and thank you for interacting with us and talking to us. But I think we need to wrap it up.
Yeah, it's been almost 2 hours. So, a chunk of our podcast today, of our discussion today, was eaten up with that 30-minute video. So if you want to just go back and watch it, you can watch this and fast forward to the video itself.
Isn't that what Jesus said? Blessed are the hygiene makers.
So Iman was telling our friend Sherry, because Sherry said, oh, hey, I used to clean toilets for a living too. And I think we've all at one point in our lives have had to do something that was, outside of our skill set in order to survive,
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. We had a great time, and we're going to be back in a couple of weeks for Bookmark. Pull quote, sorry, I almost said podcast. Pull quote has come to the end of its season. We'll be bringing it back. We're not sure. We're planning some shows, and we're talking to some new guests.
We're going to be sending out an email, like an email blast to a bunch of people to ask them if they want to be on the show again.
Right. Yeah. So
on our platform.
Look for Pull Quote in the future. It'll probably start coming back closer to the end of the year and beginning of next year. But it's not because we're not going to do it. It's just we need to get some new guests, and we need to kind of have a little break with that.
We need a break.
Yeah, because we've been putting out shows like every week, so it's been getting a little tough to keep up with that schedule. So we're gonna take some time, find some new guests, evaluate how we want to do Pull Quote. Maybe every other week, or alternate it with Bookmark. But we'll see how that goes. In the meantime.
Yeah.
We'll see you in 2 weeks for the next Bookmark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
It was really great seeing everybody, and we'll see you again.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Book of Hours are artists here to empower and embolden your response to the constant negative sound bites that attack your news and social media feeds. In order to continue making the video essays and art you've come to enjoy, we need your support. Make a one-time donation or become a patron. Thank you.